building partnership between Beit Lehem Missions Foundation and Habad-Lubavitch laid esteemed partners in our ministry. Today, I am honored to share with you the vision and mission of the Beit Lehem Missions Foundation ministry arm, a dynamic initiative dedicated to advancing Jewish global frontier missions. At the heart of our foundation lies a powerful scriptural anchor found in Romans 15:27. They were pleased to do it, and indeed they owe it to them. For if the Gentiles have come to share in their spiritual blessings, they ought also to be of service to them in material blessings. This verse encapsulates the essence of our mission: to serve, support, and connect with Jewish communities around the world, recognizing our shared spiritual heritage and responsibility. The Beit Lehem Missions Foundation stands firm on this platform, embracing the call to build bridges between communities and to provide care and support to those in need. Our mission is driven by the belief that true outreach is not merely about providing aid, it is about fostering relationships rooted in love, faith, and mutual respect. As we engage in Jewish missions globally, we are committed to addressing the unique challenges and needs within these communities. Whether through humanitarian efforts, educational programs, or spiritual enrichment, our goal is to uplift and empower, all while honoring the teachings that guide us. Together, we have the opportunity to make a profound impact. By mobilizing resources, volunteers, and partnerships, we can amplify our efforts and ensure the message of hope and unity reaches every corner of the globe. Our work is a testament to the transformative power of compassion and collaboration. As we move forward, I invite each of you to join us wholeheartedly in this mission. Together, we can fulfill the call of Romans 15:27, sharing not just spiritual blessings, but material support, creating a lasting legacy for generations to come. Thank you for your commitment and passion for this important cause. May we be inspired and encouraged as we embark on this journey together through the Beit Lehem Missions Foundation. Understanding the Habad movement, the Habad-Lubavitch movement is one of the most dynamic and globally active Jewish organizations in existence today. Founded in the late 18th century in Eastern Europe, its headquarters are located at 770 Eastern Parkway, Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York, a place known among Jews simply as 770. Habad is both a Hasidic spiritual movement and a vast humanitarian and educational network. The word Habad is an acronym formed from three Hebrew words: Homer, wisdom; Binah, understanding; and Dart, knowledge, reflecting the movement's intellectual approach to faith and its emphasis on bringing divine wisdom into practical life. Habad's modern revival began under the leadership of the late Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who envisioned a Jewish presence in every part of the world where Jews could be found, from major cities to small, remote communities. Today, Habad has more than 5,000 centers in over 100 countries, serving as synagogues, schools, relief centers, and cultural institutions. Its emissaries, known as shluchim, are stationed globally to serve Jewish life and preserve Jewish identity. This unique structure means Habad operates not as a centralized bureaucracy, but as a network of local leaders guided by the Rebbe's mission. Every Habad house functions while Habad is rooted firmly within Orthodox Judaism and does not engage in theological dialogue outside of Jewish law. It often partners with governments, NGOs, and faith-based organizations for humanitarian, educational, and social projects. 3. This makes collaboration possible even with Christian organizations, provided that the relationship focuses on humanitarian and cultural cooperation rather than religious doctrine. For Beit Lehem Missions Foundation, this creates a bridge of opportunity. Both organizations share a heart for helping communities, honoring the heritage of Israel, and preserving Jewish life and dignity. Habad's motto, Euphratzta, you shall spread out to the west, east, north, and south, Genesis 28:14, perfectly mirrors the missionary and humanitarian spirit of Beit Lehem Missions. Reaching every corner of the world with acts of mercy and support. Why partnership matters in today's global climate of growing antisemitism, instability, and displacement. Partnerships between Jewish and pro-Israel Christian organizations carry moral and strategic importance. Many Jewish communities in the diaspora, in Ukraine, Oceania, South America, and Africa, live under economic or social pressure. Habad continues to stand as a lifeline for these communities, providing education, meals, and spiritual continuity. Beit Lehem Missions Foundation can amplify this impact by extending financial, logistical, and moral support to Habad's humanitarian programs. Such a partnership would not only express Christian solidarity with the Jewish people, but also serve as a practical demonstration of the biblical mandate given to Abraham. I will bless those who bless you. Genesis 12:3. Partnership with Habad, therefore, is not merely an alliance of convenience, it is a covenantal act rooted in respect, compassion, and through learning, social integration. Many potential olim face obstacles: financial cost of travel, visa or bureaucratic delays, finding housing in Israel, adjusting to language and culture, support for children's schooling, mental health and trauma from prior experience or from moving. For communities where Jewish life has been gradual or secularized, fear of losing cultural identity or being isolated in Israel is also a concern. Areas where partnership could make difference: partnerships that offer information, counseling, or logistical support are often very powerful. This could include organizing Aliyah seminars in diaspora communities, US, Australia, NZ, Ukraine, running online or local help desks, WhatsApp, Zoom, to guide people through the documentation, financing, and emotional challenges of Aliyah. Supporting absorption services in Israel for new olim, housing, job training, Hebrew classes, is another key need. Many arriving individuals or families struggle in the early months without stable work or community anchors. Partnerships that sponsor initial housing, utilities, basic furniture, interim schooling, or vocational mentoring can substantially smooth transition. Security and mental health support are also critical, especially in communities facing antisemitism or conflict. Providing funding or collaborative programs for synagogue or school security improvements, crisis counseling, trauma recovery, and community resilience, e.g. safe meeting places, emergency relief can help. For smaller diaspora communities, e.g. in New Zealand, regional Australia recent years, and one community source reported Australia's 2024 Aliyah reaching the low hundreds. Australian Jewish News characterised 2024 as Australia's highest Aliyah rate in the past 5 years, with figures reported in the low hundreds. New Zealand's Aliyah is much smaller and typically counts in the low hundreds or fewer per year. Reporting and community posts indicate New Zealand arrivals are modest, often under 200 annually, reflecting the country's small Jewish population. In both countries, interest and application rates rose sharply after October 2023, even when finalized Aliyah remained selective and modest in absolute numbers. Ukraine's Aliyah story has been shaped by the 2022 war and the resulting displacement. Large flows occurred immediately after the invasion, but arrivals from Ukraine changed in later years. Several reports put recent yearly arrivals from Ukraine in the hundreds to low thousands range. For example, repatriates reported in some 2024 tallies, with substantial variation month to month and complications caused by the war, documentation requirements, and transit barriers. Humanitarian needs for Ukrainian Jews remain high, whether they choose Aliyah or seek relief and security elsewhere, and many who expressed intent to move faced logistical and financial barriers. France, Western Europe, and other Western sources, France and several Western countries, showed strong increases in applications, and in some cases in finalized Aliyah during 2024. France, in particular, recorded a marked rise in applications and several thousand actual Aliyah cases in 2024, with organizations reporting that French applications and flights surged after October 2023. Western Aliyah overall, excluding the large Russian-speaking component, surged in relative percentage terms in 2024, even if the absolute totals remained smaller than the huge flows from the FSU region. Country composition and the dominant flows a consistent pattern in multiple sources is that Russia and other Russian-speaking countries remained the largest single source of olim in 2024, by a very large margin. Reporting shows Russia, and the broader FSU grouping, accounted for the majority of arrivals in 2024, often cited as roughly 20,000 or more olim from Russia alone in the 12-month window ending late 2024, while Western countries together accounted for several thousand. This concentration means that headline totals can be driven by one or two large source countries, even while smaller Western communities show substantive percentage increases. Trends behind the numbers, applications versus sharply in many Western communities after October 2023, from finalized arrivals, which are limited by capacity, personal choice, timing, and logistics. Multiple reports emphasized that applications from France, Canada, the US, and the UK spiked, often several hundred to several thousand new applications in 2024, but only a portion of applicants completed Aliyah within the same calendar year. This lag means applications are a leading indicator of future Aliyah, but not a guarantee of immediate arrival. Practical notes on data quality and limits public reporting on Aliyah uses several different sources: the Jewish Agency, Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics, Nefesh B'Nefesh, and Community Press. These sources sometimes report slightly different totals because they measure different things. Jewish Agency, assisted arrivals versus official immigration registrations versus privately coordinated flights. Country breakdowns are available but often lag, are updated periodically, and sometimes change when late arrivals are recorded for a given year. For a fully authoritative country-by-country spreadsheet, what this means for ministry planning, even where absolute Aliyah numbers are not huge, as with Australia, New Zealand, and the US, the increase in interest and applications creates real opportunity. Ministries that can offer pre-Aliyah counseling, sponsorship for flights or housing, absorptive support in Israel, Hebrew study, job placement, and trauma or security support for vulnerable communities can multiply the number of people who complete the Aliyah process successfully. For Ukraine and other conflict-affected areas, emergency relief, legal assistance, and direct sponsorship of flights and temporary housing remain urgent. Key sources used for these figures and judgments are from Jewish Agency's 2024 Summary of Aliyah and related press material, major community reporting the Jerusalem Post, JNS, Israel National Press, and community publications, Australian Jewish News/Nefesh B'Nefesh reporting, as the core references for the numbers and trends above. These are the principal sources supporting the load-bearing statements in this report. Jewish communities outside Israel remain vibrant in many places, but increasingly challenged by security, identity, and migration pressures. The United States holds by far the largest community outside Israel, with Australia next in Oceania fairly significant, New Zealand small but loyal, Ukraine under acute stress. Aliyah from these places, while manifesting in smaller numbers than from the largest source countries, still matters deeply, and when supported properly can be increased. For Jewish Global Fronteer missions in Beit Lehem Missions Foundation, focusing partnership on information, logistics, psychosocial support, integration, youth and identity, could have outsized impact. Strengthening diaspora communities in this way not only helps those who choose Aliyah, but also builds healthier Jewish life more broadly, increasing resilience, hope, and connection to Israel. This message is produced out of request by Pastor Israel Ben Cannon from Habad-Lubavitch.